The Sigma and the 25th Law of Power, deep dive into recreating yourself. Robert Greene's The 48 Laws of Power, published in 1998, is one of the most influential and controversial books on strategy, manipulation, and realpolitik. It distills 3,000 years of history, from Sun Tzu, Machiavelli, Bismarck, Napoleon, Talleyrand, Queen Elizabeth I, and more, into 48 principles for acquiring, maintaining, and defending power. Unlike many self-help books that moralize, Greene is blunt. Power is amoral, ever-present, and unavoidable. If you ignore it, you risk being manipulated. If you master it, you can shape outcomes. The 48 Laws of Power is less a self-help book than a field manual for influence, brutally honest about human nature. It is both admired and feared, and its core lesson is timeless. Power is neutral, it is the wielder who makes it good or evil. Law 25. Deep dive into recreating yourself. Recreate yourself by forging a new identity, one that commands attention and never bores the audience. Be the master of your own image rather than letting others define it for you. Identity is not a sentence handed down, it's a strategy you design. Robert Greene's formulation is blunt and liberating: recreate yourself. Do not accept the roles other people hand you, the labels they staple to your shirt, or the expectations they whisper over your shoulder. Become the author, not the character. The Sigma lives this law as operating system. When the environment shifts, he molds. When the game changes, he rewrites the rules. When the audience expects him to repeat, he debuts an entirely new act. Reinvention is not crisis management, it's compound advantage. To recreate yourself is to take custody of your story, then rebuild the frame that tells it. People think of identity as marble, carved once, heavy forever. The Sigma treats it like steel, reheated, reforged, tempered. He is both smith and blade. He controls the furnace, pressure, the quench, recovery, and the final polish, presentation. And he remembers a hard truth that most ignore: if you don't choose your next self, someone else will. This law is not a license for costume changes without substance. Reinvention has teeth. It requires shedding stale habits, rewriting your schedule, changing the information diet that shapes your thinking, pruning social ties that trap the old pattern, and building new leverage from the ground up. The surface follows the core. The mask is not a lie, it's a declaration of intent, an outer form you grow into through disciplined action. The Sigma approaches self-creation with a craftsman's patience and a general's cunning. He begins in silence, designs in private, and launches when the new form has momentum. He does not debate his metamorphosis, he demonstrates it. He does not ask permission, he rewrites the narrative and lets reality confirm it. Knowing history. Number 1. Octavian becomes Augustus. History's most famous recreation might be Rome's Octavian, a pale youth with fragile health who inherited a civil war. His early image, anxious, bookish, was a liability in a culture obsessed with martial vigor. Octavian did not merely polish, he transformed. He surrounded himself with poets and statesmen who could sculpt a new identity in words, stone, and ritual. The chaotic triumvir became Augustus, the revered one. Temples rose, laws stabilized, and the theater of power was curated with obsessive care: modest homes in public, absolute authority in practice, moral legislation in speeches, ruthless efficiency in administration. Note the Sigma's lesson here: Augustus did not fake a new self, he orchestrated it. He redesigned calendars, ceremonies, and architecture so the city itself affirmed his identity daily. He controlled the frame so thoroughly that his new self became the inevitable story a million people told each other without his presence. Reinvention that endures is institutional, not merely cosmetic. You change processes, symbols, and rhythms until the environment conspires with you. Knowing history. Number 2. Frederick Douglass, From Bondage to Orator. Frederick Douglass forged a new identity under conditions designed to erase identity. He learned letters in secret, trained diction by imitating shipyard workers calling out timbers, and refined cadence by listening to sermons he could not safely answer. When he escaped bondage, he did not merely declare freedom, he performed it with such precision that audiences felt the reality before they believed it. The careful clothes, the composed bearing, the relentless clarity, all elements of a deliberate self that opposed the caricatures of the era. For the Sigma, the takeaway is steel-spined. Your old environment will try to staple your old status to your new efforts. You counter not with argument alone but with relentless embodiment, speech, motion, ritual, until the new pattern is undeniable. Douglass did not wait to be recognized as free, he lived free with such command that recognition followed. Knowing history number 3. Coco Chanel, a new vocabulary for power. Gabrielle Coco Chanel murdered the corset with a needle. She did not merely design clothes, she authored a new definition of elegance, freedom of movement, clean lines, black reimagined as chic rather than somber. She constructed a persona as meticulously as a collection, the disciplined palette, the pearls as armor, the clipped statements that left more unsaid than revealed. Chanel understood that to recreate yourself, you must invent a grammar, forms, phrases, and textures that make the new self inevitable in the eye of the beholder. The Sigma studies her method, eliminate what weakens, then enforce a narrow vocabulary of strength until it becomes signature. Restraint is not absence, it is identity discipline. People remember what repeats. Decide what repeats. Knowing history number 4. David Bowie's shape-shifting masterclass. David Bowie treated identity as an art medium. Ziggy Stardust, Aladdin Sane, the Thin White Duke, each persona was a complete ecosystem of sound, costume, posture, and narrative. Bowie did not merely evolve, he premeditated rupture, escaping the cage of last year's success before it could trap him. Each transformation alienated some fans and magnetized new ones, but the signal remained constant. Here is an artist who will not be domesticated by his own brand. The Sigma learns 2 things. First, planned discontinuity prevents stagnation. Second, reinvention must include a through line, craft, curiosity, edge, so the audience senses continuity beneath the costume. Too much rupture collapses trust, too little collapses interest. Lance the brand at the right time, not the core. Philosophical reflection number 1. William James and the as-if engine. William James argued that action precedes and shapes feeling. We do, and then we believe. His insight is oxygen for reinvention. Waiting to feel like the new self is a trap. Act as the new self would act, consistent bedtime, targeted reading, rigor in speech, and your nervous system, social circle, and opportunities recalibrate around the behavior. In the laboratory of identity, the Sigma runs as-if protocols relentlessly, as if I were the head of product, as if I were a disciplined athlete, as if I were a patient strategist. The feeling arrives late and pays rent to the habit that summoned it. This is not delusion, it's pragmatic causality. Identity is plastic. The world treats you as you repeatedly treat yourself. Sigma scenario number 1. Career molt, from operator to architect. A Sigma spends years as a reliable operator in a mid-sized company. Competent, calm, invisible. He decides to become a product architect, owner of vision, not just executor of tasks. He does not announce the reinvention. He begins by rebuilding his inputs, design briefs, user psychology, systems thinking. He starts circulating concise one-page vision documents to cross-functional teams, not opinions, but crisp schematics of outcomes, trade-offs, and testable milestones. He refactors meetings he touches, shorter, pre-reads, clear decisions. Within months, people unconsciously route strategic questions to him. The title comes later. The identity arrives first through behavior, artifacts, and consistency. When the promotion lands, it feels like description rather than decision. Knowing history number 5. The Meiji Restoration, National Reinvention. In the late 19th century, Japan executed one of history's fastest identity transformations. The Meiji leaders did not dabble, they replatformed the state, education, military, industry, dress codes, and even the calendar of rituals. They sent missions to study global best practices, imported advisors, and codified modernity without erasing continuity. Samurai ethos did not vanish, it was reframed into civic discipline and industrial resolve. This is the Sigma's macro lesson: effective reinvention integrates imported methods with native strengths, avoiding both chauvinism and mimicry. You don't become someone else, you become a new version of yourself that can compete on the current terrain. Philosophical reflection number 2. Kierkegaard on becoming a self. Soren Kierkegaard wrote that the self is a relation that relates itself to itself. The Sigma reads this as assignment: your identity is not a fixed object, it's an ongoing conversation between what you are, what you choose, and what you stand against. Hiddenness, for Kierkegaard, protects becoming, premature exposure invites derision and pressure that deform growth. So the Sigma shields early metamorphosis. He gestates in private, avoiding the dopamine of applause that would fossilize him in the chrysalis. He reveals only when the new pattern can stand friction. Sigma scenario number 2. Health overhaul, from exhausted to engineered. A Sigma founder realizes his always-on mode has become self-harm. Instead of adding hacks to a broken day, he re-architects the whole system. He blocks midnight work, installs a hard wake time, designs the first 90 minutes for movement and deep focus, and treats caffeine and light as levers, not comforts. He replaces random workouts with a periodized plan aligned to quarterly business cycles, strength during build phases, conditioning during launch sprints, deload before fundraisers. He tells almost no one. 6 months later, the weight has shifted, the face has sharpened, and, more importantly, decisions are cleaner. Investors note it without knowing what changed. That is recreation done correctly, quiet on the front end, obvious on the back end. Knowing history number 6. The masked Renaissance, persona as power. Renaissance courts understood that masks are not lies, they are interfaces. Masks and carnivals allowed nobles to test roles without penalty, to audition identities in public that would later be formalized in private. The master courtiers of the age used costume not as escape, but as prototype, a reversible garment that let them explore agency before locking it into law. The Sigma borrows the method without the velvet: try new scripts in constrained contexts, guest speak on someone else's podcast before launching your own, lead a skunkworks team before taking a public P&L, prototype a newsletter under a pen name before staking your brand. Masks let you learn without legacy costs. Philosophical reflection number 3. Hannah Arendt and the power of beginning. Hannah Arendt wrote about natality, the human capacity to begin. Not to continue, not to optimize, but to start a new line where none existed. To recreate yourself is to assert natality against inertia. The Sigma treats beginnings as sacred thresholds: new calendar, new file naming conventions, new evening shutdown ritual to protect the morning. Small beginnings are not small, they are forks in the codebase of life. Arendt's point resists cynicism: you are not condemned to loop. The miracle is that you can begin again, not by forgetting the past, but by redeeming it through a new sequence of acts. Sigma scenario number 3. Reputation rebuild after a public mistake. A Sigma leader stumbles publicly: a failed launch, a harsh memo leaked, a partnership blown. The usual playbook is PR varnish. He chooses structural atonement. He publishes a concise, unsentimental postmortem naming 3 non-negotiable changes in process. He appoints a visible internal critic to premortem major bets. He institutes a monthly, disconfirming evidence review where cherished assumptions must face data. He stops performing contrition and starts performing competence. 12 months later, the story around him has cooled from scandal to case study. Not because he argued harder, but because he became the person who would never make that error again, and made sure the organization could see it, touch it, audit it. Modern Sigma life number 1. Brand without the cage. Modernity rewards clarity and punishes monotony. The Sigma builds a brand that has principles, not prisons. He publishes a narrow promise, what he does, how he does it, where he won't compromise. Then, within that frame, he allows seasonal evolutions, new mediums, new products, new collaborations. Audience trust flows from the spine, not from freezing the pose. Here's the tactic: design a brand charter, 12 sentences that define ethos, audience, refusal points, and tone. Revisit it quarterly. Keep the spine, change the costume. This is how you scale recognition without becoming predictable. Modern Sigma life number 2. The identity stack. Reinvention succeeds when you change the stack, not just the slogan. 1. Inputs: shift the books, mentors, and metrics that shape your thinking. 2. Environment: change the room, desk, lighting, tools, so behavior defaults to the new self. 3. Schedule: carve non-negotiable blocks that embody the role, e.g., daily design sprint, weekly long-form piece, standing one-to-ones. 4. Artifacts: produce consistent outputs that the world can't ignore, memos, prototypes, demos, essays. 5. Circle: add one person who already lives where you're going and prune one who anchors you where you've been. When all 5 layers shift, the old self has nowhere to land. Knowing history number 7. Picasso's periods, color as biography. Picasso's blue period and rose period weren't marketing, each was a genuine aesthetic and psychological pivot. He let form follow season, then moved again before imitation caught up. Reinvention does not require apology, it requires tempo. Move before the market typecasts you. Change on purpose, not as reaction. The Sigma times his malts with a sober clock. When the feedback loops turn flattering and easy, he knows the brand is ossifying. He injects risk, picks a new constraint, or enters a harder room. Modern Sigma life number 3. The pseudonymous prototype. In the digital arena, the Sigma may create a pseudonymous identity to test bold ideas without reputational drag. He writes a newsletter under another name for 90 days, ships controversial analyses, and tracks engagement. If signal emerges, he merges it back into the main brand as a new series. If not, he kills it with no funeral. This is reinvention as sandbox, serious play with real stakes but controlled blast radius. The key is ethics: never deceive for harm, experiment to learn. Pseudonymity is a lab coat, not a mask for malice. Knowing history number 8. The theater of Napoleon's return. After exile to Elba, Napoleon did not walk back to Paris as a contrite politician, he staged a mythic return. Uniform immaculate, posture electric, messaging calibrated. He knew that publics respond to theater, not white papers. While his comeback ended in defeat, the lesson endures: when you re-enter a field, stage the re-entry. Create a moment worth retelling. For the Sigma, that could be a flagship essay after silence, a sharply produced demo day, or a clean product relaunch with a ruthless FAQ. The principle is identical: momentum loves ritual. Comparative analysis: 3 models of reinvention. Augustan reframing: build institutions around the new identity so others strengthen it unconsciously. Best when you hold structural levers. Bowian discontinuity: break before you're bored, preempt the market by out-evolving yourself. Best when your field rewards novelty and you can carry a through line of craft. Meiji hybridization: import what works, keep what's essential, and suture them with uncompromising execution. Best when stakes are existential and speed matters more than purity. The Sigma does not marry a model, he chooses per terrain. He may run Augustan framing at work, processes, dashboards, cadences, Bowian discontinuity in creative projects, new genres, new collaborators, and Meiji hybridization in skill acquisition, pairing rigorous tradition with modern tools. The mechanics of metamorphosis. Number 1. Announce inward, not outward. Public declarations gratify the old self. Private decrees pressure the new one into action. Write the new charter to yourself, implement it before you post it. Number 2. Collapse the bridge back. Remove the easy crutches that let you wobble into yesterday, apps, commitments, late-night distractions that bleed morning strength. Number 3. Produce visible proof. Not slogans, artifacts. A weekly long-form analysis. A new shipping cadence. A redesigned team ritual. The world updates your label when you give it handles. Number 4. Install cadence. A new identity without a new calendar is cosplay. The Sigma binds his metamorphosis to time blocks and scoreboards. Rhythm creates reality. Number 5. Protect the new form. Early heckling is inevitable. Limit exposure until the habit grooves are deep enough to resist friction. This is horticulture, stake the sapling before the wind. Number 6. Curate witnesses. One ally who believes in the new pattern is worth 1,000 spectators who prefer your old tricks. Choose who sees you becoming. Knowing history. Number 9. The quiet majesty of Murasaki Shikibu. At the Heian court, Murasaki Shikibu wrote the tale of Genji, blending court gossip with fiction so skillfully that her pen redefined aristocratic taste. She recreated herself from observer to architect of culture by transmuting private perception into public myth. No press tour, no manifesto, only a masterwork circulating in whispers that became the voice of an era. The Sigma's parallel: stop arguing for the new self, ship the work whose quality makes argument unnecessary. Modern Sigma life. Number 4. Narrative control. Reinvention fails when the world fills your silence with its story. The Sigma therefore drafts a controlled narrative. The problem with the old model: brief, unsentimental. The stance of the new self: principles and refusals. The proof of early wins: artifacts. The promise: what you will repeatedly deliver. The horizon: where this points in a year. He shares this with stakeholders who matter: team, partners, core audience, then stops talking and keeps delivering. The narrative is not a cage but a compass. Knowing history. Number 10. The strategist's costume: Bismarck's reinventions. Otto von Bismarck alternated between iron and velvet, blunt threats in one season, generous social programs in another. To his opponents he was contradictory, to himself he was coherent: unification at any cost. Reinvention that looks inconsistent from the outside can be strategically continuous from the inside when guided by a fixed objective. The Sigma keeps his objective laminated. Tactics can shapeshift, the telos does not. The ethics of self-creation. Critics will call reinvention inauthentic. The Sigma answers quietly: authenticity is not static honesty with a stale pattern, it is faithful execution of the next true pattern. He refuses deceit that harms others or corrodes trust. He embraces theater when it rallies morale, clarifies direction, or shields fragile beginnings. He refuses to counterfeit skill, he trains it. He does not pretend to be what he cannot deliver, he becomes what he intends to deliver. In short, form follows function, and function follows conscience. The systems that make it real. Quarterly mold: every 90 days, the Sigma executes a structured review. What did I do repeatedly? Which inputs made me sharper? Which habits dragged? What identity debt did I pay and what debt did I add? He then chooses one visible change in schedule, one visible change in environment, and one visible change in output cadence. Small, surgical, compounding. Identity budget: he allocates time like money: 70% core identity delivery, 20% adjacent experiments, 10% wild prototypes. The old self cannot spend next year's budget. Signal ledger: He tracks compliments and criticisms not for ego, but for pattern detection. If the same praise loops for 6 months, he knows the brand is calcifying and injects novelty. If the same critique repeats, he fixes the bottleneck rather than defending it. Exposure ladder, he stages the reveal, private rehearsal, friendly audience, neutral audience, hostile audience. Each rung hardens the form without breaking it. Knowing history number 11. The quiet reinvention of a scientist, Marie Curie. Marie Curie did not change costumes, she changed frontiers. Physics, then chemistry, isolation, then collaboration, grief, then further discovery. After Pierre's death, she stepped out of a shared halo into a singular, contested light and persevered amid slander. Reinvention sometimes has nothing to do with public pose and everything to do with refusing to be defined by circumstance. The Sigma recognizes this strongest form, a life redirected without fanfare, a laboratory of persistence. Modern Sigma life number 5. Reinventing in public markets of attention. If your work rides public feeds, the algorithm will pressure you to repeat yesterday's hit. The Sigma refuses typecasting by installing format seasons, e.g., 12 weeks of essays, then 12 weeks of interviews, then 12 weeks of applied case studies. He announces the season and its end. This trains the audience to expect evolution and protects the creator from the gravity of sameness. It also creates renewal arcs, clear beginnings, middles, and ends that let you pivot without apology. Knowing history number 12. The reinvention of Malcolm Little into Malcolm X. Malcolm Little remade himself, first through discipline that replaced chaos, then through study that replaced drift, then through rhetorical mastery that commanded rooms. Whatever one thinks of his politics, the craft is unmistakable: rigorous reading, relentless practice, and a sharpened image that said, "I will not be what the world assigned me." Later, after travel and reflection, he recreated himself again, widening his frame. The Sigma sees reinvention as iterative truth: shed what no longer fits, keep what still rings, add what new experience demands. Modern Sigma life number 6. From generalist to category killer. A Sigma consultant tired of being good at many things chooses a narrow hill, pricing strategy for developer tools. He rewrites his site to exclude everything else. He publishes monthly deep dives that become reference points. He designs a diagnostic that no one else offers. 6 months later, his inbound shifts from "Can you help?" to "We need you." Reinvention here was not theatrical, it was focus weaponized. The psychology of shedding. Why do most people fail to recreate themselves? Because shedding feels like death. The Sigma names it so he can face it. He grieves old status, old routines, old applause. Then he replaces grief with ritual, a written eulogy for the obsolete identity, a celebration dinner for the new charter, a symbolic act, donating clothes, deleting tools, returning keys, that closes the loop. Where most drift in half-shed limbo, the Sigma finalizes. Knowing history number 13. The reinvention of an era, the printing press. Gutenberg's press did not ask Europe to adopt a new identity, it forced it. Literacy patterns, religious debates, scientific exchange, everything reconfigured. The Sigma extracts a stern warning: sometimes the terrain recreates you whether you like it or not. When the substrate changes, technology, law, culture, clinging to the old self is not loyalty, it's self-erasure. You must migrate. Modern Sigma life number 7. Legal and ethical guardrails. Self-creation has boundaries. The Sigma does not fake credentials, manipulate testimonials, or masquerade as a victim for traction. He does not plagiarize, he cites. He does not colonize a cause for clout, he contributes or stays silent. The new self must withstand audit. If an investigative journalist asked for your receipts, you could hand them over with calm hands. That calm is a strategic asset. Knowing history number 14. The second act, Churchill's wartime persona. Before World War II, Winston Churchill was the wilderness years politician, out of favor, seen as strident. When war arrived, he recomposed himself as the voice of resolve, vocabulary, tempo, silhouette. He did not become a new person overnight, he synthesized traits that mattered most for the hour and cut the rest. Reinvention often lies in selection, what you amplify, what you mute. Modern Sigma life number 8. The re-onboarding. When the Sigma switches roles or returns from sabbatical, he treats it like a re-onboarding into his own life. New calendar, new communication norms, new North Star. He sends a one-page, "How I Work Now," to close collaborators, response times, meeting philosophy, best channels, red lines. He doesn't hope people notice he has changed, he teaches them how to interact with the upgraded version. Craft notes, how to make it stick. Name the campaign, Q3, from analyst to strategist, spring, from commentator to builder. A named campaign creates urgency and memory. 2 keystone habits, one morning, one evening, that anchor the new identity. Everything else radiates from these anchors. One unmistakable artifact, the world needs something to point at, see? Different. Build it. Ship it. Repeat it. A small audience of record, 3 people who witness, encourage, and demand receipts. Private pressure beats public promises. A date to kill the costume. If the new identity isn't delivering by date X, you pivot with dignity. Reinvention is bold. Knowing history number 15. The long reinvention, Eleanor Roosevelt. Eleanor Roosevelt transmuted shyness and self-doubt into public service mastery. She expanded the role of First Lady beyond ceremony, factory visits, press conferences, human rights advocacy. She did not seize power, she grew into responsibility week by week, engagement by engagement. Reinvention can be a steady accretion rather than a single rupture. The Sigma honors both speeds. Modern Sigma life number 9. Anonymity, then emergence. Some reinventions proceed anonymously. The Sigma writes code under a handle, funds open source maintainers quietly, tests a marketplace prototype with no personal brand attached. Only when the core mechanics work does he connect the dots publicly. He values truth over credit early, and credit flows to truth later. The metronome of identity. Recreation is easiest when you install a metronome, a repeating action that keeps time with the new self. For a writer, 1,000 words before the world wakes. For a strategist, one memo that clarifies a tangle every Thursday. For a leader, a weekly 1-hour block dedicated to removing a process bottleneck. The metronome makes the identity audible. If others can set their watch by your behavior, the new self is real. Knowing history number 16. The reinvention that saved a company, a turnaround CEO. Consider a leader who inherits a drifting company. He cancels the vanity projects, collapses meetings to 40 minutes, and publishes a crisp 2-page operating doctrine, how decisions are made, what will be measured, what will be ignored. He moves 2 beloved but blocking executives into advisory roles, kindly, firmly. Within a quarter, the organization feels different. That feeling is identity. The stock price will lag and then catch up. Reinvention is first cultural electricity, then financial statement. Modern Sigma life number 10. The portfolio self. Careers compound when the Sigma builds a portfolio self, several identities that share a heart but diversify risk, builder, writer, operator, investor. Each quarter, he tilts the allocation to match the season. This is not scattered, it's hedged coherence. If one identity faces winter, another can enjoy summer, and the person endures. You and this lesson? You are not finished. You are not stuck with the names others gave you, the jobs you once accepted, or the reflexes you practiced under old weather. Recreate yourself is your license and your discipline. It is permission to molt and an obligation to do it cleanly. Begin privately. Draft the charter of the next you. Strip the calendar that feeds the former you. Change the room so the new you can breathe. Choose 2 keystone habits, protect them with a ferocity that embarrasses excuse. Produce artifacts at a cadence that embarrasses doubt. Curate witnesses who will tell you the truth and keep you from quitting 3 feet from the gold. Stage your reveal like it matters, because it does. Not for applause, but for irreversibility. Momentum loves ceremony. And then, repeat. The world will try to freeze you when you finally get good. Don't be domesticated by your own success. When it's time, break the mold you built and pour yourself anew. You are allowed to begin again as many times as it takes to become inevitable. The Sigma refuses the coffin of consistency. He opts for coherence, the through line of values and craft that survives many costumes. He is not a chameleon for approval, he is a shapeshifter for mission. When the field changes, he changes first. When the story grows stale, he writes a new chapter. When others ask, "Who do you think you are?" he smiles and answers with a calendar, a body of work, and a life that says, "I am the one who decides."